Anton Lamous, Head of Office of the European Union, Delegation of the European Union to Jamaica, Belize, and the Bahamas.
Okay. Can you hear? Yes, okay. I'm not sure I have my presentation. Shall I press or? Yeah? Okay. First of all, it's an honor to be here representing the European Union. I'm based in the country. I'm based in Belmopan. We have an office called the Technical Office. I'm here to present our new strategy, the EU strategy, which is called the Global Gateway Investment Agenda for it has started in 2022 for the next 5 years. It is really a new paradigm shift. It's a template for how Europe can build more resilience connections with the world. These are the words of my head, Ursula von der Leyen, the President of the European Union Commission. I'm going to talk about this new global gateway investment strategy, but first I want to repeat what was presented this morning from my colleague Arek on what EU is offering in terms of bridging markets. The EU is actually open in terms of market. It's a 450 million consumers, people that are, the market is open to import and export, in particular for Belize, for the Caribbean region. We have signed what we call the EPA agreement, European Partnership Agreement, which allows every goods which is exported to the EU from Belize with zero tariff. Same for imports coming from European Union to Belize, we have zero tariff for 80% of the goods at the moment. It's gradual, it's a gradual process, and it will be finalized within a few years to have 100% of the goods which are coming to the European market. Now we have our new global gateway investment agenda. So it's a strategy which is about trying to attract investors from the European Union. We want to, it is designed actually to offer new partnership with third countries. The aim is to forge stronger ties and partnership between European investors and Belize businesses. Our collaboration extends beyond financial investment and access to markets, and the EU is dedicated to sharing technologies, knowledge, expertise, enhancing capacities to create an environment where business can prosper. So our new strategy really aims to attract foreign direct investment in key strategic sectors. We have 5 different sectors. I will come back to that later on. And the idea, the EU principle, is to have, the EU principle is a value-based offer to partner countries to position the EU more prominently in the competitive world. We want to develop this strategy in particular for Asia, Africa, America, to foster economic growth. So the idea is to fill the gap in terms of achieving the UN SDG, Sustainable Development Goals. I was looking at the figures. We have, from now to 2030, a gap in terms of investment of $3 trillion. So it's huge, and therefore this is why we would like to invite the private sector to fill this gap. So the strategy is really to leverage quality investment to help address the partner countries' infrastructure needs. So the EU Global Gateway is an initiative aimed at promoting sustainable and high-quality infrastructure development across the world. It is designed to enhance connectivity, strengthen partnership between the EU and the other regions, in particular in 5 sectors. The key elements of this strategy are attracting investment for infrastructure, in particular from the EU side, promoting partnerships with countries that share EU values, emphasizing good governance, transparency, and sustainable development, and respect for human rights and environment sustainability. I was talking about 5 sectors in particular we are looking at. So for the digital sector, the strategy promotes digital connectivity to bridge the digital divide globally, ensuring access to technology and information. For the climate and energy, we are focusing on grid and sustainable projects on infrastructure to align with global climate objectives and the EU's climate commitment. On the transport sector, that may go from port, airport, infrastructure, train, e-buses. You may have seen this morning, we made the Minister for Transport made a very nice presentation of what the EU is contributing in terms of e-buses in the country. We have the education and research, so we are trying to promote investment in ESG, good governance standards. In the health sector, the strategy is supporting the diversification of supply chains in critical sectors such as health. The overall idea is also to address the issue of green transition. The strategy aims at provisioning accessibility, let's say with the last kilometer access. I take one example. In Belize, we are looking at the connection between Guatemala and Belize in terms of connection of the grids. So this is where the strategy can make a real difference in terms of investment with the last kilometer access. We are also covering investment in solar mini-grids, like in the south of Belize, for instance. We are mobilizing capital from institutional investors, not only the EU, but also generating interest from different finance institutions in Europe. We are trying to mobilize also through green bonds what Belize or other countries can generate in terms of issuing bonds. So I will come back to that later on. And we are also trying to generate carbon credits. We will see later on. I have my colleague that will make a short presentation on the carbon credit project. So the idea is really to increase and diversify access to private capital, develop credible green bond frameworks as well. So in terms of mobilization of funding, there is an overall envelope of 300 billion euro across the board globally for the whole world, for in particular Africa, America, and Asia. So this is divided into different envelopes. We have 18 billion euro in grants, direct grants, which are the EU-funded projects. You may have seen in Belize some of them, such as technical assistance, budget support, cooperation project. So these are projects implemented through our procedures, standards, etc. We have another source of funding, which are direct investment to leverage more investment. So these are the guarantees. So we have what we call the EFSD Plus. I won't come into the details. So it's 40 billion euro as a guarantee that will leverage 135 billion investment through the private sector. So this is managed by the European Investment Bank. And as I said, we want to leverage funding from other financial institutions, in particular from Europe. So the idea is to provide loans for sovereign loans, but also sub-sovereign loans, and also for the private sector. So we have different envelope. 27 billion euro goes directly through sovereign loans infrastructure project, and we have loans for MSMEs, for equity investment, 13 billion euro. And again, beside that, we have another envelope, 145 billions, which are direct loan managed by EIB, EBRD, other financial institutions, directly for equity investment and loans. Few words about the Green Bond Initiative. So I was telling you that we want to leverage private investment, and we assist countries to issue sovereign loans through a green bond. We have a Green Bond Initiative, and we provide technical assistance to the government to issue loans post-issuance, but also pre-issuance, but also post-issuance. And we do provide also some partial subsidies to green bond to allow bringing down the cost of investment, the interest rates. The sectors, I was mentioning the sectors, the priority sectors of the Global Gateway. We invest, currently we have 225 flagship projects. Most prominent sector is climate and energy, almost 50% of our investment, but we do invest in the transport sector, 22%, digital sector, 13%, health, 9%, education and research, 7%. What we do in Belize, sorry, the slide is a bit bigger, but we have started in 2023 with a regional program, which is called the 5 Great Forests of Mesoamerica program. We have injected 25 million euros in this program for better conservation of the biodiversity through the region. We heard about the role of biodiversity and what the government is trying to do together with Mexico, Guatemala at the regional level. So we assisted through a program to do precisely this. In 2024, we have started a digital program together with IDB. We have supported through a grant the loan of IDB to do digital innovation in the country, and in particular services to support women-led MSMEs, in particular for rural communities. In 2025, yes, I mentioned this. No, not yet. We are looking at financing infrastructure for water supply and sanitation, drainage, and mini-grid for vulnerable communities, in particular for the south of Belize. In 2026, the priority will be on Sargassum, how to turn Sargassum from a threat to an economic opportunity. So we are trying to develop a program together with the government and the tourism industry, maybe with IDB mobilizing other sources of funding. In 2027, the priority will be on transport, and we are very interested and very vigilant on what the government wants to do in terms of port, airport, infrastructure development. Okay, the next part is on carbon credit. So I'm going to call my colleague, Romain, to present few slides on what we are doing on carbon credit.
Thank you very much. I have a little task to finish. I have about 85 slides. So,
oh, sorry. Yeah.
No, I have 5 slides. I just want to talk a bit about carbon credits. I don't need the mic. I can do that. Carbon credits. Let's do it. Carbon credits. Before talking about carbon credits, we're talking here about natural assets in the country. So anyone knows what's the percentage
of forest cover in Belize? I hear some 80. It's a bit less, but it's high. It's 55%. And how many hectares of mangrove? That's a more tricky, but my questions are more and more difficult. Then I have a quiz at the end, and I give scores to everybody. 75,000. And so carbon credits is removing carbon from the atmosphere through your natural assets. Okay, so one credit is an equivalent of 1 ton of carbon. And then there's a market to sell and buy those carbon credits. So you have to think of it like a commodity. You can think actually of the same story that Madam Ambassador mentioned with cocoa, with you have a product, which is a carbon credit, and you need to find a buyer. So what is driving that market is supply and demand, as simple as that. So let's look at that supply. The supply is the forests, is the mangrove, is the seagrass. We mentioned that, but there are also other sources of supply. One of the supply is biomass. Biomass is any waste from organic material. It can be the bagasse from sugarcane, it can be the husk from cohoon, from cocoa, all those things that you can then transform and you encapsulate it into something that then capture your carbon and you sell it on the market. So that's a bit the principle, just to put a bit things in motion. You can also do carbon credit with electric mobility. So we mentioned the EU UNDP executed electric buses. When you finance an electric bus, it's that many tons of carbons that is not going into the atmosphere if you had a normal bus. So 1 ton of that avoided is 1 carbon credit that you sell into the market, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the principle. Why? So now let's look at the demand. This is something I always say. It's, again, the same story with cocoa. That's why I love this story. You may have a product, but if you don't have a buyer, you have nothing. So there was a lot of talk those past 2 days on the framework, on regulatory elements, but at the end, it's a market-driven environment, and you need a buyer. And the buyers, what do they want? They want high integrity. They want something that is robust. They want something that has a sound methodology. They want things that they can then tell their shareholders, we bought something that is valid. Exactly like a commodity. Exactly like in the case of Taiwan, they cannot receive just unrefined cocoa beans. They want something that is transformed. They want something that is ready for their market. So this is what we want to do here. And this is what we want to do with the Euroclima project of the EU in helping the government to find those buyers. This is the program. So we start with some studies. The Euroclima program has a few players. One of them is Expertise France, one of them is UNDP, one of them is GIZ, and we're financing studies to assess what could be the supply and what could be the demand. So we have about €500,000 to look at the bankability of that. So looking at your mangrove, there's not that much data on mangrove. How many hectares that we know? We don't know the quality, we don't know how much they're damaged. And what I know is how much buyers in Europe or elsewhere are willing to pay for 1 ton of carbon removed. And having that, we can create bankable projects where investors can come, either directly country to country and talk to Belize and buy those credits, or a company buying directly on the voluntary market. That's the principle. 4 action pillars on the study. The first one is anything about blue carbon. You've heard it. The ministers have talked about it. There's a lot of elements on a regulatory framework on that. The idea again here is going to be to look at mangrove and seagrass and look at the potential. How much can be sold? What is the cost of having a mangrove project? And what could be the buyers there? The second one is agroforestry. Again, what I always advise to use the strength. Sorry, I quote you a lot, Madam Ambassador. It just comes, but apologies for that. But value added is competitiveness. This is what makes the difference between one random carbon credit and a special Belize-made carbon credit. So Another asset that is your value added is all your agricultural sector. And looking at that is what we discussed, I mentioned earlier, on looking at cocoa, cocoon, bamboo, it can be sugarcane, other things, and how this can be transformed through the agricultural supply chain into a carbon credit as well. So that's going to be the second part of the study. The third one is electric buses. We've mentioned it. Xavier mentioned electric buses financed by the EU. Each time you electrify something in transport, you remove 1 ton or more tons of carbon from the atmosphere. So you can sell that on the market. And the last one is capacity building, training, because as the government and all the different departments and ministries are learning about carbon markets, they need to be ready to verify the project, to submit them, to have deals, to discuss transactions with sovereign buyers and corporate buyers. I think it's 75 slides to go. I'm going to go fast. That's my last slide. So again, my main message is this one. There is a market for carbon credits. Belize has lots of potential, lots of natural assets, but it is a competitive market. So my recommendation is always twofold. One, know more about your asset. That's why we do those studies, to really understand them. And try to promote and bring value add on something that the market wants. And the market wants high-value blue removals. Anything about the ocean is something that is very sellable. If you had blue carbon credits available today, I could sell them by 5 p.m. today. So there's a demand on that. Biochar credit is transforming this biomass that I mentioned, the bagasse, anything that is a waste, wood chip, into a sort of a charcoal that is very condensed and capture the carbon for 1,000 years. This has a very high market price on the market, high value. People want that, so you can sell that. Then anything about that can bring a dual stream income. I'm talking about agriculture. Like the farmers, they have this waste, they can sell that waste so that it can be produced biochar, but you can pay them. There's a lot of revenues that can be shared. And finally, all the electrification is something that also has a place in the market. So all those things are available in Belize, and this is what we're going to explore in those studies to see the exact potential and put a number on those different types of carbons. Thank you so much.